What is up? Welcome to your first session review. So as explained, I'm gonna run the video and then stop at all the spots that are interesting and comment on your play. So happy to have you here. Again, thanks for being part of the membership. And I see you're playing an L10, so that's good. I have a very good idea of the GG pool over on NL10. So let's get the session started. Gonna start the video here and then off we go. Ace Jack, pretty standard 3 bets. Everything's fine here. This type of board you want to check back quite a bit, so you're going to be c-betting a lot of the Broadway boards. So if the deuce, for example, was a queen, you would c-bet here. You do have the clubs, so there is some merit to betting, but if you want to simplify your strategy, I would just check the middling and low boards back. As I said, 3-betting is definitely fine, especially with the club in your hand, because you can barrel. It would be better to have the ace of clubs in this spot, but it's totally fine. And the queen is a pretty good card to barrel, so I would probably go for another bet if he checks. Which you do. I don't like the sizing. So what happens a lot with beginners is if you don't really know what sizing to pick, most players opt in for 50%, which doesn't really accomplish much. So on this board, you mainly on this turn want to go for a large sizing. So bet larger. Like if you think about your entire range, you have pocket nines here, you have pocket queens, you have ace queen, you have kings, aces, etc. So if you want to bet, you would usually bet for a larger sizing here. So I would want to see a larger sizing on this turn. But it's good that you bet the queen, but still, think a little bit about the sizings. Queen jack, decent open. Kings will definitely 3-bet. In squeeze spots, you size up. That looks pretty decent. Gonna see how this one plays out. Pocket aces in this instance, or pocket kings with a spade can definitely bet without a spade. In the squeeze spot, I would want to see you bet here as well. You can potentially check back here too on this board structure, but in the NL10 pool where you have someone already calling an open race, they tend to be more of a station. So I would give him a note here, first off, that he calls in the cutoff against the hijack open, or just tag him as a recreational right away. And against him, I would probably just always bet my overpairs in this instance for a larger sizing. Yeah, I think you can definitely go bigger against him. It's an exploitative bet. So the reasoning going larger here is that you can safely jam a lot of turns. Now the stack to pot ratio is a bit off. So against the stationary opponent, I would go for something like 20 big blinds here and then jam most turns. King 10 is a fold. So yeah, definitely go large. Yeah, getting the price you have to call. Pretty unlucky. But I think you played that one fine. Again, would use a different sizing and jam this turn. Ace queen is a 3-bet. Small blind versus big blind, 9BB is perfect. So I see you have not started taking notes on people so far. The defend is fine, and on this board I would probably just check fold here. It's gonna get tough to realize your equity even if you hit. So that's good. Queen Jack, pretty standard open. Waiting for the guy to reconnect. I don't know if you're using a donking range, but these type of boards where you are out of position against, it was just a limp pot, but let's say he raised and you defended the big blind, not with Jack Deuce, but with another hand. These type of boards like 9-7 Deuce, 5-6-8, middling to low connected boards are definitely a good donking opportunity. So if you want to implement a donking range into your game, these are the type of boards you want to be donking. The way you played it here, check, is purely a check call on this board mostly. Yeah, I would still call this. Get no action with the queens. So you just straight up folded king 7. I would want you to check the stats of your players in the blinds, because if you have somewhat tightish players, you want to open way more buttons than usual. So don't fold too fast in that spot. King 7 against aggressive blinds is definitely a fold, so that's totally fine. But I would want you to check the stats of the small blind and big blind before making your decision. So small blind versus big blind, if you are first in, you want to size up with your open raise. So the open raise should be 3 big blinds. If you are not certain, check the preflop charts you have access to. It states in there what sizing you want to pick. So small blind versus big blind first in, your open raise should be 3 big blinds, not 2.5. Get called, decent board to c-bet. I'm not a big fan of the check, especially unblocking spades. So interested what you want to do here. Don't know if you always check this type of board. King Jack Jack is definitely a c-bet. Yeah, I think you need to c-bet this. Against his calling range, if you think about what he's defending on the button, there will be some suited jacks, but a lot of it is also lower pairs. And if you can get something like pocket fours, pocket fives, pocket sixes to fold here, that's brilliant. So you definitely want to be c-betting this board. On the on the paired boards, I would usually go for half, but as it is a Broadway pair, you can also size down and go for the regular 1/3 sizing. The way you played it, you basically have to give up. So now the late c-betting doesn't make much sense. Yeah, you have to check this here. And that's the problem here. You gave him like 2 free cards, and it's not a good opportunity to bluff here. I assume he will check down something like fives. Deuces, yeah. So you can definitely get that to fold with the c-bet. King queen is a fold. Looks good so far. So you do have some players tagged, but not many. I would advise you, like here you have on table one NMSLHHX. He's only playing 60 big blinds. This is usually a straight up sign for a recreational fun player. So make sure you tag the stacks, because if he gets lucky and doubles up, you still have the note on him that he is a recreational. So always tag the players that are not playing full stacked. Pocket sevens, again, 3 big blinds. So the sizing here is a bit off. King 4 is a fold. Bit loose to open King 10 offsuit in the hijack. I don't mind you opening in the cutoff, but in the hijack, I would be still a bit tighter. Again, you're not really checking the stats of the players behind you, so it seems like cutoff and button have decent stats, but you should check beforehand before you open a loser range. So if you have like absolute nits behind you that are playing 15 VPIP or lower, you can definitely raise it up lighter. But against people with decent stats, you don't want to raise King 10 in the hijack. Get it through. Every single ace is an open first in on the button. The defend with ace 7, it's fine, but I would probably prefer to 3-bet those type of hands than just call, but calling is definitely okay. Just be aggressive, because small blind will open very wide ranges, small blind versus big blind, so 3-betting will print a lot of money in the passive NL10 pools. But it always depends on the players. Like, calling is definitely fine too. Decent open here. Again, paired board. On the paired board, I size up a little, so your c-bet is 50% here in this spot, and then you can barrel on some nice turns. Yeah, I think that's a bit too passive. Yeah, getting a ridiculous price on the Jack 9, don't mind the call. So if the board was something like 2-5-6, I would understand the check, but the paired boards are usually fairly good for the pre-flop aggressor's range. You have all the pairs. He doesn't really have any strong pairs, as he would 3-bet. And yeah, I would always c-bet here. Yeah, you're basically trying to see all 5 cards with the Jack 9. I wouldn't put any money in. That's totally fine. Don't bluff against 3 opponents. Yeah, you go for the bluff. You're not repping much. The thinking process here is you don't really have that many 8x, because when it goes check, check, check on the flop, you would probably bet an 8. So I would actually not be surprised if someone calls you with a weakish pair or even ace high here, blocking the flush with a diamond, for example. And yeah, I don't like this bluff against 3 opponents. Queen 10 is just a fold, especially against someone playing the 16 VPIP. Pick up pocket queens, easy 3-bet here. Go to at least 10, something between 10 and 12 is fine. Good sizing, I like 11. Again, king 8, before you open, you need to check the stats. And I would not open this pure. Easy fold. Ace king, good hand. Pocket threes is a defend. Ace deuce opens. He shouldn't really be checking this board structure. Your hand is fairly vulnerable, so I would probably just bet against the check here with pocket threes. If you check back, you're basically telling your villain to give up, and then you have to give him 2 free cards. So I would bet pocket threes for value and protection against like all of his jack tens, queen jacks, queen tens, every single ace X that he has in this spot. So I would have bet the flop here. And sizing wise, you can just go a third. The bet on the turn is definitely fine though, when you check it back. But yeah, I would just c-bet the flop. Not c-bet, but bet the flop here when he checks it. And then this will definitely be a note for the player that he checks a board he should be c-betting, and that it's weak if he doesn't c-bet small blind versus big blind. So definitely a nice note to have. You can exploit that either way. Deuces in the hijack are not an open. You need to fold here. It's too early. Hit a set on the monotone board. Monotone boards are somewhat difficult, but there's a really simple strategy where you can simplify your entire range on monotone boards, and that is small bets. So go 25% here with your entire range. Yeah, I think that's too large. And I would still continue betting here. So I would bet my entire range, because you can still get value from worse hands, even though 4 spades are there for small sizings, because you make the EV of calling with something like ace X, queen X, basically 0. So I would go for a 25% bet on the flop, 25% bet on the turn, and then if you get called on the turn and you do not improve, you can check it back, because it's unlikely you get 2 streets of value on a 4 flush board from single pair holdings. I think the way this played, you have to check. Yeah. So definitely, as I said, against this type of range, you could have gotten a bit more value. Against the 4-bet, pocket 10, small blind versus big blind, can definitely jam in theory, but in the Russian cash NL10 pool, I don't see many people 4-bet bluffing that much. So I think I would probably just call pocket 10s in this instance. If we're playing higher at some point, shoving is definitely fine too, small blind versus big blind. Flop the world, and on this board run out, you just have to call down, no raises. You want to let him barrel with his like ace jack, ace queen type of hands, and if he has ace king, you're gonna get the money in anyways. If he has aces, you're gonna get the money in anyways in these positions, so I would just play calls here. You don't want to fold out his bluffs. Ace queen gets there, obviously not ideal, and pocket jacks beat you too. But in the 4-bet pot with middle set, you have to go with it. When he checks, I would always go for a small sizing here. That's good. I hope you bet this amount. Yeah, that's really good. So make him make a tough decision for him, like with ace king type of hands, maybe even ace 10 if he 4-bets that suited. I don't see his stats right now, but definitely a good sizing for value. Take it down, nice. This would not have been a good run out. So if he calls and the 9 peels off, you basically have to check back there. Backdoor flush gets there, and there's a 4-card straight. So really unfortunate run out if you get called on the turn, but you definitely played that well. Seven deuce is not an open. You thought about it. Don't mind the open with the I assume this is the tag for recreationals, the light blue ones, or for nits, and against both the open is fine. So if the light bluish, no, the red one is probably your reg tag, and then the light bluish, the nitty tag, and the green one, the fish tag, right? It's good. I don't mind 3-betting here. I don't mind calling. The button and the big blind are the only positions where we call. I would want you to check the stats of this player and this side, but going either way is fine. Yeah, so he only raises 9% of hands you just checked. So I would probably just defend on the button against him. Yeah, against such a tight opening range, 3-betting ace-jack doesn't accomplish much. You're gonna get 4-bet a lot by this player, I assume, and then you have to muck. So it's better to just call and see a flop in position. 4-5 is full pre-flop. Yeah. So you just fold out too much of his range because he's so tight. So it's always going to be either a 4-bet or a fold in this instance from his side. So I think the better play there is to just defend the button. Although 3-betting ace-jack, of course, is not wrong, but it's an exploit you want to have. Flop trips, go for a third. It's good. Still continue barreling. He only has 30 big blinds left, but there's going to be so much trash in his range, and you block the spade, so I would always just go for a large sizing. That's good. And when he checks, I think I'll go for the full value and jam with the spade in my hand. You want to get full value out of his Queen X type of hands. That's perfect. Played this one well. So I'm really happy to see like you are not a complete beginner, obviously. So the session I did before this session review was a complete beginner, and I can give you a compliment here that you're actually way better than the session review I did with the other guy earlier. So yeah, I also have some people who started out playing on NL2 and they've been in the membership for a couple of months now, and they subsequently moved up to NL. I think the highest one is NL25 right now. So there's definitely a lot to be learned. And he also started with without my preflop charts because he started the membership before I had them. But now he's also using them, and it helped a ton for his preflop play. But yeah, so far preflop looks pretty solid in my opinion. Yeah, again, I think these type of hands you can open, but definitely check the players behind you. So if you have someone with a higher 3-bet percentage, you want to be a bit tighter under the gun. Really depends on the pool or like on the table you're at the moment. Good thing you tag them on table 1. And the check fold is fine. King 9 first in, I'll open. Ace 10 against the cutoff is a defend. That's fine. So again, this is the type of board where you can definitely play some donks if you want to incorporate the donking strategy. And without a heart, I'm just folding this. Yeah, I don't like the call. So I think if you want to play this board structure, there's a ton of check raising you're doing. So if you had the ace of hearts, for example, I would always check raise this board against the flop c bet, because you do have all the sets, you do have all the strong draws, and you also will have the initial two pair, something like three deuce of diamonds or three deuce of spades. So yeah, don't like the check call. Should check fold, and with the ace you can check raise. Pick up kings. No, what happened? You got dealt out. Timed out of kings. That's so unfortunate. King Jack against the 13 VPIP is just a pure fold. It's good. Open ace Jack here. Cut off calls, button calls. Against the squeeze, you have to muck ace Jack. Yeah. Oh, wow. You do flop a lot of sets. I will, out of position, always check on the... You do a lot of checking anyways out of position. So I would always pure check the board structure. That's good. And then you want to check raise the draw heavy structure here. Yeah, go large. 4x. Yeah, can even go larger. But check raising is very nice. And you want to bomb the turn. It's good. Perfect run out. Just jam. Played this one really well. Definitely c-betting the ace high board here. The diamond is not a great card. I would probably just check. And I think if you want to bluff here, you usually would go for value with your ace-x type of hands. So bluffing 6 high here is mandatory. I like it. Good play. Don't mind the call against the nitty player. You hit a really nice board. You're not playing that many check raises on this board, so check call is definitely fine. The ace is an unfortunate card, but you do have the king of hearts, so you cannot fold the turn. Just pure check calling. And then on the river, I would just... Ace 9, I think you can open. Just check fold here on the river. Having the king of hearts becomes bad now in this instance, because you're blocking some of his natural bluffs. So good play. Small blind versus big blind, you want to be 4-betting these type of hands a lot. So I would go to something like 21, 24, something between that. Perfect. I like it, especially because you are a bit deeper. Get called. Flop a perfect board. 4-bet, c-bet sizings should be mostly 25% if you start betting. So a third is a bit large. But I'm happy to see you 4-bet here. Don't know why you keep getting timed out. Maybe it's an issue with the software. Feels like it, right? GG has been laggy in the past couple of weeks. So tough that you get dealt out of kings and ace jack there. Jack 9 hijack is too early to open. Would just fold this. And again, make sure to check the stats of the players before you make your decision. But Jack 9 of hearts shouldn't be an open in a nittier pool. So wait a second, what happened here? You open, get 3-bets, and then he overcalls the 3-bet. All right. It's a pretty tough spot, to be honest, but I would probably just defend here. You are trapped in the sandwich position, which is not ideal, but you're getting such a good price, so I would call here and continue on a good board. But be careful, hitting an ace, for example. The 7, 8, 10 check back I think is not ideal because you do have the ace of clubs, so you can definitely start barreling, and also you can make the nuts by the river and you can bluff on clubs. So I would always c-bet this with the ace of clubs in my hand. If you have ace of diamonds, queen of spades, for example, checking back is better. After full table 1. You do run really well so far, apart from the king's hand early on. Again, on this board structure, I would probably check raise here. It favors your range. You have pocket fives, 9, 10s, the good draws. I think I would check raise this. And you can potentially, having the ace here is not ideal, but I would probably block bet this river always. You can still get called by like low pairs, deuces, 3s, 4s, 6s, 7s type of hands, and even some 8x if he checks it back, something like 7, 8 in this spot. I think I would bet this. Give him a note here that he's not betting Jack 10. On the turn. So the interesting question would be, do you call against the big bet too? Think you make life easier and can get value from worse hands that are checking back on the river. And you also, a 10 is likely not raising against your block sizing. So I would just go for a block sizing because it's a better play than check calling in this spot. since you don't get any value from deuces, threes, fours, sevens, etc., as I said. But if you are planning on check calling anyways, so you're always paying off a better hand, but you're not making any money against the hands that you beat. So block betting on the river is the optimal play there. Um, and then of course you still lose to 10x because he's not folding that, but yeah. If you plan on check calling, you're gonna lose value against 10 anyways. So it's better to squeeze out some value when he has sevens or fours, etc. Again, I would tag the shorties. You did. Don't know what the difference is between yellow, not yellow, but like green and light blue. Ace Jack is a 3-bet. It's fine. 7.5 is fine too. You flop a decent board. It is monotone. The c-bet with tens is definitely fine too. Sizing up a little here, I like it. Pretty draw heavy. You have to protect against overcards. So betting tens is good. If you had something like aces, you could check back this flop a lot too, because aces need less protection than tens. On the monotone board, you want to go for a small c-bet, 25%. Solver sometimes even goes lower to like 10%. He does have a shorter stack. On this turn, I would probably bet small again and give him a little bit of rope to pull off some random bluff with a single diamond. And against his stack size and the stack to pot ratio, you're not folding the turn anyways. So I would bet small here. Yeah, you go for full value. Can be a mistake against Shorty, but I think to somehow keep a lot more of his range in the pot, I would not jam here. That's fine. You have to go with it here in the 3-bet pot against the short stack. And the force hand is fine. Ace Queen, pretty standard 3-bet here against the button. You do run into it a little bit. This type of board, I would probably just check a lot or bet for a large sizing. So you want to mix your range here, and Ace Queen, I think, wants to check way more than it wants to bet. You have to think about his range, which will feature a lot of pairs. So he will call button versus small blind all pairs, and they are very unlikely to fold here. So you have to be prepared to bluff a lot on the turn if you bet this. So I think on NL10 you can refrain from doing so. You don't need that. It's just gonna up your variance because you have to barrel here a lot if you start c-betting. So I would just save some money and check. Pick it up. So yeah, on the jack, for example, you would have to continue barreling and then bluff hearts with the queen of hearts in your hand. So high variance play here. I think it's better to just check. Again, jack 10, a bit loose in the hijack, but fine. All right, splash pot. Fairly straightforward. You get a good hand, you jam it in. Pocket fives out of the small blind is a fold, even without the 3-bets against the hijack. You are playing a 3-bet or fold strategy mostly out of the small blind. King 5 is a bit too low, so what I usually say to include the right amount of bluffs in your 3-betting range, big blind versus small blind, you need to include some mediocre hands that have easy playability post flop. So I include King 6 through King 9, for example, a lot in my 3-betting, depending on players. King 5, I would just fold, especially against the 16-10 guy. That's fine. Yeah. Queen 8, you could have called, getting such a good price here. It's decent playability against 3 opponents. Pocket 9s is an open. It's really good. So depending on him, yeah, against this stats, 22-19 with a 14% 3-bet. The 3-bet percentage is not really that relevant unless you have more hands, but you already have 1,500 hands on him, so it's pretty good. Pocket 9s, I would be inclined to 4-bet against this particular player because he's going to be 3-betting fairly wide. And pocket 6s, you can just defend on the button. Calling is definitely fine too, but against this specific player, I would 4-bet. You don't want to do too much calling out of position against 3-bets. Go for a third here. Don't go too large. You don't want to bloat the pot too much. And a third accomplishes the same thing. It's fine. Yeah, see, that's what I say when he's 3-betting a wider range, so you would have gotten the pot against his King 10 of diamonds if you 4-bet here, because he's most likely to fold pre-flop. Let's not be too results oriented here, but still. 9s is definitely strong enough to 4-bet against a capable 3-better out of position. And on the turn, I would go smaller. And you will also want to give him a note that he's not c-betting as the 3-better there on this board structure. So every added information helps you in the upcoming pots against those guys. 4 deuce is not an open. I wouldn't open that. Yeah, as I said, King 6, for example, would be one of my 3-bet bluffs, small blind versus big blind. But you opted to fold, which is fine, but just think about it that you don't get too passive. So on the 3 Broadway boards, you definitely want to c-bet. If it was ace, deuce, king, for example, you want to go for a large sizing or even overbet. In this instance, I think your regular sizing is fine, so just go for a small bet. That's good. The reasoning behind that is your range advantage on double Broadway boards. So you want to go for a polar sizing because you have all the strong hands, and he never has the strong hands in these spots because he should have 3-bet pre-flop, right? And thus you can just blast your entire range for a large sizing and be super polar and pick up the pot a lot. Or build it for future streets with your value hands. 10-9 and the hijack again is not an open, just a fold. So you open a bit too wide in the early positions. I would take a look at that. And King 10 of spades is a fine defend against the cutoff. So on this board, you do have the backdoor spades, but the board structure doesn't really favor you that much. If you want to play this hand, I would check raise it, I assume, but in this instance, I would just fold. Yeah, I don't like the call. You're out of position, so it's so tough out of position to realize equity. And you need 2 cards to improve here for a good hand. So I would just check fold here. When he checks it back, I assume you have to bluff this combo. I would probably just go for a small sizing, not a large sizing. Accomplishes the same because he's probably still inclined to call an ace if he checks back the turn with an ace. And if he is just folding something like king queen, he's also going to fold that to a smaller sizing. So the large sizing is a bit unnecessary. It works. Three betting queens. Again, you're a bit deeper, so 11 would be my preferred sizing, but 10 is definitely fine too. Don't forget the stack sizes if you're playing. Pick it up. Paired board with the king, king 3, you want to go for a c-bet. It's good. And this is actually a card where you're mostly checking back. The 3 is not particularly great, and you hit the queen, which is really nice. So if he checks, you want to value bet, and I would always value bet for a large sizing here. Yeah, that's again like half pot where you are uncertain whether to go for a small sizing or a large sizing. So the way this played out, he's fairly inclined to call all of his pairs. So I would go for a larger sizing here, try to get more value. Good board to c-bet with the a7 of spades. And against the check raise, you want to fold. King 9 against the nitty 3-better, table 2, I would just muck. All right, you do have the purple tag 2 for nits, I assume. Just the way I do it too. So we have not seen too many post-flop spots yet that were somewhat difficult, where you made a ton of mistakes. Most of the big pots you played, the hands played themselves. There were some sizing issues. But pre-flop, I think it's mostly solid, apart from your early opening ranges, which are a bit too loose in my opinion. Nine eight of spades, I will 3-bet here against an unknown. That's good. Ace 4 you can defend. Yeah, I think if you want a 3-bet, I would pick the suited versions, not the offsuit ones. They have better playability. The attempt to steal stat is, you can basically neglect that because you need such a huge sample to really make it count. But yeah, I would defend the ace 4 there, not 3-bet. Fold, fold. Pocket threes in the big blind is a pure defend against any position, so you just don't want to have anyone 3-bet. Against a 3-bet, you have to muck, obviously. King queen on the button, easy open. It's all good. I would not 3-bet here against under the gun, especially you did not check the stats, but 21 VPIP is usually not that loose. So Queen Jack has a better defend on the button than a 3-bet. If you have someone opening super loose, you can definitely 3-bet Queen Jack suited because the playability is nice, but against the somewhat regular, you just want to keep the pot small in position. You get a cold call out of the big blind. I would definitely give him a note right away. So 3-bet cold calling ranges are usually fairly capped. He's basically telling you he has pocket nines, pocket tens, a lot, maybe even pocket eights, depending on stats, and then a lot of like ace queens, ace jack type of hands. Maybe something like king queen suited, king jack suited type of hands. You flop a good board. Definitely see betting here for a third. Wouldn't go as large. You're bloating the pot a bit too much with this sizing, so just keep the pot a bit smaller and then see how it goes. You don't have a problem getting the money in by the river if you want to, even with a third sizing. 9-7, I would just fold on table 2 against the pre-flop raise. Yeah, it's a bad fold. I would go 75%. And here you just want to fold. This board is not great for you. So yeah, go smaller on the flop and then bet 75 on the turn as played. And don't forget to give them a note. Sevens is a fold. Jack 10 is a fold. Ace 9, I don't know, like you open Queen Jack offsuit, but not Ace 9 suited, so what's the reasoning there? Ace 9 suited is a clear open under the gun. 7-5 suited, you have to open. No, obviously not. So yeah, Ace 9 of spades is a better open than pocket deuces you opened earlier in the hijack. So yeah, check out the charts, learn them by heart. Sixes against this sizing, you have to muck. It's good. Especially because under the gun versus big blind will be one of the tightest ranges in the game. So when people complain about running set over set, that's usually a mistake of them calling pre-flop. where they should have folded. So happy to see that you're folding sixes in this spot. If you are deeper, you can defend more, but 100 BB, you just fold. Not a big fan of the call. You don't want to be calling too much. This might be a leak in your game. We have not seen that many hands where you were the three better, but with where you were three bet and not the three better, and you just called out of position. So watch out for that. 9-8 is just a fold here in this spot, but you do flop the nuts, which is always beautiful. Hope you check raise this board. Go for a third. No, I don't like the check. You have to bet here. He called you with ace high. So in his shoes, I don't mind the check back. And then I think you have to bet the turn. And with the ace of spades and the backdoor spades possible, I think with the ace of spades in his shoes, I would have called. And then against your bet, I would have raised the river. But yeah, don't like your line. Just fold pre-flop. And if you call, and in this instance as played, you flop the nuts, you have to bet the turn. You want to get money in. Queen 7 is a defense, small blind versus big blind. No, I would not. You have decent playability. I wouldn't try and get out of a spot where you have a suited hand that plays fairly well. Would just call here. Just give up. You hit the 7. I would still fold. River over bets on NO10 are usually not bluffs. So yeah, your play should have been to just call pre-flop, not 3-bet. No. Get lucky, but it's still a bad play. So yeah, overall, his value range has you so crushed because he can definitely go for all the value with like 8s, 9s, 10s. If he's somewhat passive pre-flop, he will also have jacks. So I really don't like it. And he has a ton of king X, obviously. So I really don't like the call. You have to be right so often in this instance for this bluff, for this call to be profitable, as he overbets the pot. So not a big fan. You're gonna lose money in the long run. Pocket fours, queen high board out of position. You wanna check. It's good. And I would go for a block sizing here with fours when it goes check check. A bit too large. Ace deuce against the min raise, I would still fold. Against under the gun, it's fine. So you want to minimize the spots where you are playing out of position a lot. That's why I also don't like the call with the 9-8 of hearts where you flop the straight. Your stats look pretty good. 22-19. So I don't know if you are beating this limit. I can imagine that you're beating it. If you are not beating this limit, I assume it's because of calls like you have just made with the Queen 7, where your pre-flop game is pretty solid, but then you lose too much money or don't make enough as you did not value bet thinly enough on the rivers. So this is where your win rate might be burned. But yeah, it would be interesting to see a graph over like 10,000 hands or more. Against this many opponents, I think I would go for a smaller sizing. And you have to fold. So if you call here, I think that's a sign of you being a bit too much of a station. No, you fold, nice. So I think you can save money there by just going smaller against this many opponents. So against 2 or 3 players, your sizings generally go down, not up. So half pot is basically the biggest bet you have. Fold plus 7-8. Again, in my opinion, a bit too loose opening the 9-8 offsuit in the cutoff. So you need to tighten up your pre-flop ranges a little bit. So wait a minute, pocket nines was just a call. We don't play calls in the cutoff, so this should always be a 3-bet. Bit too passive. Bit too passive. So the only ranges where we have calling ranges are the button and the big blind, because on the button you have absolute position for the entirety of the hand, and in the big blind you close the action mostly when you call. So don't call in the cutoff. It's a 3-bet or fold. Pick up aces. So I see you switch up your sizing between 10 to 11. I don't know what that is based on, but it's like not a huge issue, but stay consistent. Fairly draw heavy board. With the ace king, you actually want to check back this board structure a lot, even with your strong range. So I wouldn't mind see you check here to balance out your like weakish hands that you want to check back here, something like king queen, queen jack type of hands, right? So you have to check back some of your strongest hands, and ace king of diamonds will definitely be in there. And on the jack 10-9, I definitely want to see you bet, not check. Did you check that back? That was good if you did. Yeah, I like it. Just call. And I would still raise here for value, but it is a raise fold. So let me see what happened with the aces. So it went check on the flop, and now you bet. I would go even larger once you check. And this is a terrible, terrible river. Could play with the ace king. Yeah. Really not happy about that. So this is the spot where you have to be careful not to let you get outdrawn that much. The board is so dynamic. So pocket aces, you have all the pocket nines, pocket tens, pocket jacks. You have king, queen suited type of hands that you will 3-bet here. So I definitely want to see you c-bet this board structure. Did it go check, check? Did he check back the straight? Yeah, this is... you got lucky that he didn't bet, but you probably just have to check fold pure aces here in this spot on this terrible run out. Because you're not beating any value bets anymore, so it's just bluffs and value. And people who are nitty usually don't have river bluffs in their range, so they're not balanced there. So you can overfold. That will be like one of the main exploits for micro stakes. Defense 7-6. Not 7-6, 7-8. Again, if you want to play this hand, I would be happy to see you check raise this one. I like it. It's good. And then bet it for a third. Again, you don't really know what sizing to pick, so you go for half pot. Go for a third. Pick it up. What happened here? Again, a monotone board in position. You definitely want to go for a c-bet for a small sizing. Bink the gut shot. Against the shorty, I will just raise and get it in. Yeah. It's fine. You do run into some flushes sometimes, but he only has 30 big blinds, so no one cares. You want to check on the ace king. That's good. Call king jack. It's good. It's free rolling. So what happened here pre-flop? Did you call again in the cutoff? You did call again in the cutoff, didn't you? Yeah, that's plain bad. So you have to decide here pre-flop. I didn't see because of the 7-8. You have to decide pre-flop whether you want to get the money in for 30 big blinds with king jack of hearts or not. So I would probably just fold this, to be honest, pre-flop, but never call in the cutoff. So it's 3-bet or fold. So if you want to get the money in for 30 big blinds with king jack of hearts, which I think when he has a higher VPIP is better. So if he's playing more than a 30 VPIP, you can 3-bet call here. But with him playing 24 and opening under the gun, I would just pure fold this. So the mistake was definitely pre-flop and post-flop. Yeah, you want to bet the flop for a small sizing, as I said. And on the turn, of course, you have to get the money in with the straight against 30 big blinds. And you split. It's good. So yeah, we definitely have to work on your pre-flop play. Not like your ranges. They're a bit too loose in early positions, as I said, but your 3-betting range is off. And then post-flop, you're not betting the boards you should be betting, but we'll get there. Definitely squeezing tens. It's good. Can even go a bit larger. You are playing a bit deeper. So I wouldn't mind seeing going something between 14 and 16 here. Pick it up. let me see what you did here. So you opened, I would not check this back again. Your reasoning is probably pot control, but there are so many hands you want to get value from on this type of board that you have to bet your top pair. And I would bet for a large sizing here, as explained earlier on the double suited boards. Now, yeah, you just give over like initiative in this spot, which is not ideal. And it's too thin to bet this. Yeah, that's too thin. I don't expect him when the flush hits and there are some potential straights out there to get called by something like, I don't know, like King Jack, Queen Jack, you're targeting, I assume. But they will probably not call. So c-bet the flop. Check, check. Go for a small bet on the turn with pocket eights. King 10, I would fold against under the gun opening. 17 VPIP. So definitely check the stats here, not a defend against this tight of a player. When it goes check, check, you want to bet the turn. I would probably go for smaller sizing here against under the gun. If it's button, I'm going larger when he checks. So when button versus big blind plays a bit differently, when they check back the flop, you can, on these type of boards, basically barrel your entire range for a large sizing and expect to pick up the pot so much. But against under the gun and the tighter player, he will do some checking back with ace X type of hands and some middling pairs, so he's never checking back a jack, I assume. So just go for a smaller sizing. What happened here? You bet the turn, which is good. Yeah. I think you can potentially block bet, although the 10 is not ideal. So if it was like 7-6 jack deuce jack on the river, you can block. I still think small blind versus big blind ranges are so wide, he's gonna have so much like queen nines, king queen type of hands that he might not 3-bet. You don't know that. So I would probably still go for like a super exploitative bet of 2 or 1 big blind. So you don't get bluffed by his queen highs, king high type of hands. And you potentially also squeeze out some value against 7x and lower pairs if he has like 4s, 5s, 6s in this spot. The way this played out, you have to fold. Yeah, I don't like the call again. And you have to give this guy a note. Yeah. Bit too much bluff catching going on. And if you are losing on NL10, I think this will be the main reason, seeing the queen 7 from earlier and now the pocket 8s. You call too much on the river and not bet yourself enough. So this will probably be, apart from your 3-betting pre-flop and 4-betting and not calling, and then tightening up your early position ranges a little bit. That's easy to fix in the next couple of sessions. But the homework, I think, will definitely be to work on more c-bets, like if we go to post-flop, and then stop calling so much on the river and value bet more on the river for value. I think these will be the main tasks here. Go for the c-bets. That's fine. On the heart, I will just give up here. It's not great. Ace 10 you can call, you can 3-bet, both is fine. Ace 10 is strong enough to check raise this board. So you do play some donks. I don't know if you do that with your entire range. This is not a bad board to donk, obviously. And depending on stats, I would just fold this. That's quite strong. Yeah. Obviously have to fold the turn. I would have folded the flop too if you donk here and get raised. Did you check it back on the 9? Hope you did. Yeah, it's good. So yeah, ace 10. I don't know if you donk this every single time with your entire range. That's fine. You can also check raise this board structure. And with a heart, you can check call. So if you have the ace of hearts, you can definitely also just call. But yeah, when you donk and you get raised super large, you have to muck there. Because you're basically always just calling to give up because, like, how many good turns are there? A 10 might not be good for you, an ace might not be good for you, but give you the second best hand against his sets, right? So he might also have a flopped straight in that spot. He does have some two pairs, obviously, that you can outdraw with the ace, but still you're going to be out of position in a tough spot where the EV of your hand is probably negative. So just fold against the raise on the flop if you donk. Flop a set, I like to check, and you want to check raise here. Yeah, 4x is definitely fine. Pick it up. Isoing the limp is fine. Yeah, so you open Jack 10 of spades, but not Ace 9 of spades under the gun. And depending on players, you have to fold Jack 10 of spades. King 10 is solid. You are super deep, so I don't mind anything. You can, your standard play is to fold, obviously, but being this deep, calling is fine. Even 4-betting is fine. I don't mind you doing anything here. I think every play is solid. You're probably going to pick the passive route and call. Yeah. Pretty decent board to check raise because you do have the gutter and backdoor spades working. You have all the 7s and 9s. So this is usually a board he will have to check back a bunch when he goes for the c-bet. I think check calling is pretty bad. But check raising is nice. I like it. Don't like check call with the king 10 here. Same spot basically. With the backdoor spades, you don't have a gutter to the, you do have the gutter to the straight with the 10. So 4 more outs, same spot, and one you decide to check call, which is not the optimal play, and the other spot you raise, which is good. So what's the reasoning here? What's the difference? So you can do more calling when you're in position, but out of position, you want to call less. You have to fold the turn. It's dodgy. You're checking the stats with pocket 9, so you're thinking about cold 4-betting here. I think in the NL10 pool that is fairly tight, I would not cold 4-bet pocket nines. Yeah. Go for the fold. So yeah, I see there's like some really solid stuff already. Of course, definitely a couple of things to work on, but we have a good foundation. So you have what it seems like good basic understanding. Your ranges are a bit off, and you're not that great with c-betting and river play, but that's definitely something we can work on in the upcoming sessions. So 6-7, especially a bit deeper. Cutoff versus button, you can definitely 3-bet or call. I think folding is a bit bad. And there was a limp, right? Yeah. You have to be a bit careful here, although this is a limp pot, building pots with like middling holdings, which are not really suitable to play big pots. So I wouldn't check raise this board. I would just check call there. That's I wouldn't be surprised if you find yourself too often in spots with weakish hands and the pots are just too big. So that's because of sizing or like picking the wrong spots to check raise. King 8, not a defend. If you want to play this, you want to 3-bet or fold. So I don't hate the bet here, but I think if you want to bet this structure, you want to size up a little bit. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this bluff, to be honest. What did I do? Kind of zoomed in a little bit. It doesn't change anything. You can still see it. So yeah, I am really interested to hear your thoughts on that, because you are blocking 8-7, okay, you are blocking some 8-6, but you also block his bluffs with like 8-9, so the hands that he will likely fold. So what are you barreling against here? He's fairly inclined to call even ace high here on the river, so what is this overbet? This doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, I think pre-flop is the first mistake. Post-flop, the sizing is wrong. And then you get called the 6 when he calls here. You do have it more often than him, I assume. But I wouldn't go for too many pure bluffs like this. If you want to bluff, you want to have at least good blockers or a chance to hit a good hand. So a semi-bluff. And with King 8, you have neither. So yeah. We will talk about this, I assume, once you see the video. Not a good one. Just because the bluff works this time doesn't mean that it's a good bluff. So don't forget that. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about that. Think apart from the Queen 7, that's one of the biggest punts here. All right, you play the ace jack. Again, a board where you want to c-bet, not check back. So if you have not seen it, as a member, you have actual access to the Crush series. And a week ago or so, I posted a video of a flop strategy, which is simplified, and I show all the boards you have to c-bet on and you have to check back. So you obviously have some leaks when you're getting to the flop as the pre-flop aggressor, where you're not c-betting the correct sizings or the correct boards. So make sure to watch that, and yeah, go from there. This board you have to c-bet. Yeah, I don't like it. You get bet to ace jack, of course, against the sizing, has to call, and now you have to fold. I assume you're gonna call because you like to call rivers. Yeah, this, like, this line doesn't make sense. What are you repping? Like pocket queens. That's it? You're repping one combo. Yeah, don't like this. Explain yourself. All right, so this will be the session. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely some good stuff in it. You have some good fundamentals. Post flop, we have a ton of work to do. I really want to talk about the last two hands there where you went for these weird lines with the king 8 and the ace jack. So yeah, watch the video and we're gonna talk on the Discord. See you.